The purpose of training is to put behaviors on cue so that we have off-leash, distance, reliability. There's no quicker way to do this than lure-reward training the dog. And the lure-reward sequence is really very simple. 1, 2, 3, 4. Number 1, request. Number 2, lure. Number 3, response. Number 4, reward. If we were asked, how to train a dog to do anything, we'd always know 1, 3, and 4. Like, how do you train a dog to speak on cue? We know number 1, say speak. Number 3, the dog goes woof, woof, woof. And number 4, we say good dog, good dog, good dog. What we're looking for is how can we lure the dog to speak? And of course, an easy way is knock on the door, have an accomplice, ring the doorbell. So now you've got your basic training sequence. This is what makes lure reward training so quick that from the very first trial, we're actually training the dog to do it on cue. And so lure reward training is much quicker than, say, clicker training, where first you have to capture the behavior, then you have to put it on cue, then you have to phase out the clicker and the food reward. Right from the outset in lure reward training, we're putting the behavior on cue, and in lure reward training, it's so easy to phase out the lure and the reward. So let's go through the stages of lure reward training. As I said, the basic sequence is 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, the stages are 1, 2, 3. In stage 1, you want to phase out the lure. And we do this after just 6 repetitions. We say puppy come, sit, down, sit, stand, down, sit, and so on with food in our hand. Then we put the food in our pocket and we say puppy come here, sit with an empty hand. We phased out the food lure as easy as that within 6 to 12 repetitions. A little harder will be phasing out the hand lure or the hand signal. This is where we need exquisite timing. When we say Rover sit, we must be absolutely still. We mustn't move. If you go Rover sit, the dog will not learn the meaning of the word. He'll watch your head bob and he'll watch your hand move, and that's what he learns. If you want him to learn the meaning of the word, you say Rover sit, then you lure him, good dog, and you give him the treat. Rover down, then you lure him with your hand. That way the dog will learn to anticipate, aha, every time they say sit, it's followed by the lure movement, which I know because that was easy for me to learn. So now the training sequence, 1, 2, 3, 4, becomes 1, 3, 4, because we don't need the lure. Now, if you like, we've got a verbal lure. Number 1, the request, is the lure which gets the dog to sit. We then move to stage 2 in training. And stage 2 in training is we want to phase out the food reward. We don't want to have a dog that will only consider doing it if we have food in our pocket, say. So what we do is a number of things. We could reduce the number of training rewards we use, only rewarding above average responses, so only rewarding 50% of the rewards, or thinning it out even more. Asking more for less, 4 behaviors for 1 food reward, 5 behaviors, 8 behaviors, 10 behaviors, and so on and so on. And basically, an average puppy in puppy class will gladly do 10 puppy push-ups for the prospect of 1 food reward. That's 20 sit-downs for 1 food reward, 20 behaviors. That's absolutely amazing. So we could thin it out to 20 to 1. Then we'll put the dog on a differential reinforcement. So we're phasing out the food at training reward. But also we can just go cold turkey. And I tell people, pull the food out of your pockets. Pull your pockets out. You got no food on you. Tell the dog to come. When he comes, take his collar, tell him go play. Go play is now the reward. We replace the training reward, which is very useful for a new dog in training or a puppy. But by the time they get to adolescence, it just ain't going to work that well. We've got to replace it with more meaningful life rewards. Come here, sit on the couch. Come here, sit, tummy rub. Come here, sit, go play. Sit, throw the tennis ball. Sit, let the dog jump in the car. Sit, put the leash on. Sit, let the leash off. All these things. And then the dog says, sit, wow, I love it. So now, basically, the training sequence has become 1, 3. You request, and the dog responds. Not only does he respond, but he responds willingly. That he's happily compliant. He wants to do it, because that indeed is what the majority of training is. It's very easy to teach the dog what you want him to do, but 90% of training is teaching the dog, motivating the dog to want to do it. So now our training sequence is 1 request, 3 response. And by and large, the dog's going to be happy to respond. But not always, not always. There will be those times when the dog says, yeah, in a minute, hey, I'm busy. So stage 3 in lure reward training, now we're going to enforce that the dog does it. But we're going to enforce without force. All we're going to do now is when we ask the dog to sit, we are going to insist that the dog does it. It's that simple. There's no reason to raise your voice. There's no reason to get nasty. There's no reason to use implements of torture, metal collars or what have you. You just ask the dog to sit, and now he has to do it. Now, to make it easy, I like to cue to the dog when he has to sit. Usually, for example, with Hugo, I call him Hugo or Hugie baby. If I really want him to do it, I'll say, Hugo Louis, sit. And by calling him Hugo Louis, he knows that the next command is a must-do. And all I have to do is calmly, gently, softly insist that he does it. And when he does it, if I had to repeat the command for him to do that, then he has to repeat the exercise until he does it following a single request. And I find dogs learn this really, really, really quickly. So this is the basic lure reward training sequence. It's the quickest way to train a dog to absolute reliability. However, to get there, you've got to phase out the lure within 6 to 12 repetitions. You've got to get it out of your hand and into your pocket. And then you've got to phase out the food reward and replace it with life rewards. But by then you're going to have a dog that's really motivated to want to do what you want him to do.